Hello, everyone. It's Tommy Lee Hayes Brown with Rito Recognition. I'm here today with my friend Roy Saunderson, and he's going to share with us how to get over our being uncomfortable in giving recognition to people. It's a great topic because not everybody is comfortable, giving recognition, and he's going to address some of the things that can make things easier for all of us. Just one housekeeping item before I introduce Roy. Right there in front of you, you see a button that says raise your hand or ask a question. Go ahead and do that during Roy's webinar. And what I'll do is compile those questions or comments and get those out to him when he's get those out to him to answer your questions for all of us. So it's a great time for you to get some free advice from one of the industry's most beloved and recognized members. So Roy is our Chief Learning Officer here at Rito, and he's a strategist who helps companies find their return on recognition. He's also an author, and he's the author of Practicing Recognition. That's his latest book. It's the first in his series of practical and strategic books on giving employee recognition the right way. He's a regular contributor to Training Magazine and Incentive Magazine and was chosen as one of the 25 most influential people of 2017. He's considered one of the world's foremost thought leaders in employee recognition and engagement. He consults with clients, he educates leaders, he works with employees and workforces to help improve their cultures and their employee engagement around the world. We are just really pleased to have him here as part of the Rito family. I think you'll find his webinar today a topic that you don't see much of. I'm glad, Roy, you chose this topic because while it comes easy for some of us, it is really challenging for others, but we can all get to the finish line. So without further ado, Roy Saunderson.
Thanks very much, Tommy Lee. And you're quite right. This whole uncomfortableness around giving recognition is more common than we realize. Yeah. And yet I think the individuals who are struggling with this may have created their own barriers to giving recognition. So I wanted to kind of just cover some of those areas. And before we get into just some of the discomforts that people experience with giving recognition, I thought I'd just set the stage with some interesting facts about the state of employee recognition identified by the Gallup organization. So for example, here's the harsh reality. Only a third of US employees strongly agreed that they received recognition or praise for doing good work in the past 7 days. Only a third. That's 67% of employees weren't recognized within a given week. And that's kind of a sad reflection, but I think there's always a root reason or cause behind this, and that's what today's webinar is going to get at. And here's another reality from the same survey, in that many employees feel that their best efforts at work are routinely ignored. And when I see that, I'm also seeing the fact that not only are their best efforts, their work, their progress, their achievements being ignored, but they too are invisible. They're being treated as an invisible person within the organization when they're being ignored for the great things that they're doing on the job. And finally, employees who don't feel adequately recognized are twice as likely to quit their jobs in the next year. And that's kind of a scary reality when you realize that 67% of employees are not feeling recognized, and they are twice as likely to quit their jobs in the next year. So when you start doing the math, it can really add up. So I'm curious, let's just have a look at this whole issue. Why are we so uncomfortable with giving recognition? And in the interest of time, we're only going to cover a few of these areas, but I wanted to just kind of highlight them for you. So first on the list is you don't know how to give recognition. And we're going to go into deeper detail on these issues, but I just want to kind of cover the main points here. So you don't know how. Second reason that is given is I don't have time to give recognition. Probably the most common reason that's been given to me from managers and employees from around the world as I've traveled globally and talking about recognition, the lack of time is given as the highest reason. Another reason we're uncomfortable with giving recognition, we're not used to getting recognition ourselves. And when we don't receive recognition, we can feel inclined to not give recognition to others. And finally, we're just too busy. So we forget all about this need for recognition. So these are just the four that we're going to cover. There's certainly a lot of other reasons why we're uncomfortable with giving recognition, but in the interest of time, I think this is a good set to work with for us. And then I can give you some suggestions for how to deal with them. So how can we overcome these discomforts with giving recognition? The first that I gave on the list was literally just don't know how to give it. And this is very common. This whole knowledge piece prevents the confidence around giving recognition. So I want to give some realities and also some solutions for dealing with this not knowing how to give recognition. So let's have a look at the realities. It's true. Many people don't know how to give recognition. It's not like you had a course on this at school or college, university, whatever. And in many cases, there's not a lot of programs or education given even in the workplace about how to give recognition. So we lack that confidence on how to publicly acknowledge people or even one-on-one with them. It's not a familiar task. It's not a habit. It's not something we may have received growing up, whether that be at school or in the home. So, we don't know how to give recognition. Now, the wonderful beauty around the solutions is that recognition is a learned behavior. You can learn how to give recognition. And I think if you're watching this webinar, you're having a desire to want to get better at giving recognition. At Rideau, we also have formulated a Vistance learning package, which is an online learning system for giving micro-learning courses for managers on how to give more effective recognition. It's been developed around many behaviors that we have seen to be in effective managers for giving recognition. And we have a whole recognition skills assessment that allows a manager to be able to determine what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then they're prescribed in the order that they need the various learning modules. These are like 8 to 10 minutes in length, but it surely helps give them specific details on how to learn how to give recognition better around a specific behavior. And then, of course, as Tommy Lee mentioned, I have my book, Practicing Recognition, where I identify a lot of the recognition practices that are great to use. And so you can certainly get that at Amazon and find that and draw upon that for your research and development in recognition skills. And I also invite you to check out the AuthenticRecognition.com blog and look at the recognition practices section. And there you will be able to see a lot of skills, a lot of behaviors on how to be more effective at giving recognition. In boosting up your knowledge, you'll learn how to give recognition better, and no longer will you be able to say, I don't know how to give recognition. And as I said earlier, the no time to give recognition is probably the most common reason that people give. And I like to say that really that is not a reason. It's probably more of an excuse, but we believe it and we adhere to that. And we then get ourselves stuck in a mindset that disallows us from recognizing those around us. So time, and what are the realities and some solutions for dealing with time as a discomfort reason for not giving recognition? Well, the reality is our time really does get consumed. I don't know about you, but my work days and my work weeks seem to just disappear. More so it seems than yesteryear. But the proof is that recognizing people doesn't take a lot of time. And I can tell you that saying the words thank you is probably no longer than 1.2 seconds. And giving effective recognition, well under a minute. You're probably talking about 15 seconds max to give some very meaningful verbal recognition. Or even if you were writing it, whether that be a text-based online recognition program or a written thank you card or an e-card online, it's not going to take you long to do that. So that's a reality check. I think what we need to do is that we need to respect time as a commodity that can be used wisely. And recognizing your peers and staff is a great way to use your time wisely. So I like to think of recognition as something you're investing in people. And investing that time is going to pay off on relationship building as well as performance. And finally, I think we need to make giving recognition the most enjoyable part of your day. Don't get stuck on the whole time limitation. It's important to see this as an enjoyable activity that you can do. Let's have a look at some solutions to help you. Well, I don't know if you've done it, but you should really time yourself giving recognition, or maybe time other people that you're watching and seeing, and acknowledge the fact that it's not very long to give recognition. It doesn't take much time. And then, once you realize that, start to practice being very specific, giving specific recognition on the spot to people that you observe. And what do I mean by giving specific recognition? I have, as many of you know, a two-part specificity rule, which talks about being specific about what the behavior was or the task that the individual completed or achieved that you want to acknowledge. Be very specific about describing it instead of the, great job, well done, and they don't know what you're acknowledging. Be specific. That's the first part. And the second part about being specific is to specifically tell them how what they did impacted you and made a difference to others. And when you do that, you give great recognition. And that, I think, just automatically eliminates the time excuse, because now you're feeling more confident about how to recognize people, and it's meaningful. It's meaningful to you because of you observe what someone did, and now it's a chance to acknowledge them. And then when you get more formal occasions for recognizing, whether that's maybe a service milestone, career milestone, or maybe an awards event, President's Award, or some top ranked award in your organization, then prepare yourself a little bit more so you can give meaningful and effective recognition. Look up details about that individual, how they're living the values, how they've helped achieve some strategic initiative. Then you prepare. Finally, a solution for dealing with this whole time issue is to plan in when you'll give recognition. We all know there's going to be those spontaneous events where you encounter someone or you're on the phone with someone. But it's also important to realize that during the course of our busy days, we're going to observe, we're going to hear about, we're going to get an email, learning about what someone has done. And maybe it just takes some time for you to either go in person to go and recognize them, plan it in, or maybe to go online. I can give you an example there. I met with one department director, and she would call in her managers once a week to learn what some of the great things were that their employees had done that she would not be aware of. And using their social recognition program, she was able to say, "Hey, Marita, I just heard from Tommy Lee about that project that you completed, and that was done through either an e-card or through the social recognition news feed," just adding to comments. So that's what she did. She kind of found out from her managers what some of the great things were that she wouldn't have known about, and it allowed her to give a second opportunity to recognize them over and above what their immediate supervisor or manager had done. So these are just great things that you can do. So value time as a commodity to be worthy to use, to give recognition. Get confident on how to do it. That's the knowledge part. And then learn to give recognition by planning it in as well as the spontaneous recognition. Now, I talked about earlier, just as one of the reasons for why we're uncomfortable with giving recognition is we're not used to getting it ourselves. And that does happen in some places. And that's sad to say, but we saw that from some of the Gallup organization statistics, how real this can be. So let's look at the realities about not getting. Okay, so we've acknowledged that 2/3 of employees do not feel that they get recognized. Also, that 79% of employees who quit their jobs claim that it's a lack of appreciation was a major cause for why they left. And then finally, 82% of employees feel their supervisor doesn't recognize them for what they do. So these are some of the harsh realities. It's there. We can't ignore it. There's a lot of people not receiving recognition. So, do I let that be a reason, an excuse for me stopping to recognize others? I don't think that's a good reason. So let me just give you some ideas. First of all, choose to lead out and recognize others anyway. This is where you got to take your own leadership strengths and put this on the forefront that you're not going to be one of those other supervisors or managers. Even if you're not even in those positions as an employee, what are you going to do to acknowledge your peers? When you see something, say something. Recognize them right away. If you see some, people have helped you, make sure you acknowledge them. Praise someone who's made a difference to you during your workday. And then for your own benefit, and I've certainly done this at different times in my life, I've kept my own achievement log of things that I have done, kind of like my growth log, things that I'm working on. Keep a record of it, and you can read it sometimes, and kind of say, hey, I'm doing well. I've done this, I've done that, even if no one else acknowledges you. And then when you are ready for a performance appraisal or whatever performance management process, you've even got your log there so that if your supervisor or manager wasn't even aware of the things you have been doing, you've got it there and you can refer to it. So it may not lead to a lot of recognition directly, but it is a self-acknowledgement of what you have done. And then finally, ask your manager for genuine, meaningful recognition. I mean, like, hey, I don't feel like I'm being recognized by you. And I've certainly done that myself. I remember way back in my very first job where we had that wonderful 90-day probation period. What a terrible term we use for that. But during that time period, I hadn't heard anything about how I was doing. And I was hearing some rumors and negativity from some of the peers I was working with. And so I thought, by God, I'm going into my manager. So I went in and I said, hey, look, I've been here, 80 days, whatever. I've not heard anything about how I'm doing. How do you feel I'm doing? Well, they told me, and it was positive, but it wasn't in their makeup to give recognition or to give any feedback, which most employees will tell you they want to know how they're doing along the way and not just at the end. So don't make not getting recognition yourself an excuse for not giving other people recognition. Do what you can to take the lead and recognize yourself through your own achievement log. And if necessary, ask for recognition if you feel comfortable with that manager or supervisor to be able to do such a request. And finally, we're too busy and we forget to give recognition. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we get busy. There's no doubt about it. And some of the realities of this is that we do live in a busy world. And here's some interesting statistics I found. Maybe 86% of men and 67% of women work more than 40 hours per week. That's a lot of hours working when it starts going beyond that time frame. And you and I know that when we get overworked, we're at risk for stress, and that can lead to some very debilitating illnesses and sickness and health problems. But there are solutions, fortunately. I came up with this. I remember when I was director of a department and I had about 6 to 8 employees, and I did their performance appraisals, and I asked them, what are 3 things I'm doing right? And what are 3 things I need to improve in? And one of the things I needed to improve in was signing off on their vacation requests much quicker than what I was. And this was back in the day of written memos that would be submitted. And how long does it take to read a memo and with 6 or 8 employees, look at their seniority ranking, look at the schedule to see what's been asked and approve it? Except I was making it a task. And so that task, that piece of paper went in with all the other pieces of paper. When I got to it, I got to it. But in reality, these were my most important people. So once I turned that around and put relationships first and looked at the task of actually approving their vacation request, it was actually 30 seconds long. That's all it took. So I put relationships first and tasks second. And you and I know we'll always have those tasks. We'll always have those pieces of paper around, but people won't always be around. So put people first, put relationships first, and tasks second. Another suggestion is to schedule your life around your priorities and then set some boundaries. Set some absolutes where you won't allow certain things to take you away from this important task of recognizing people. I've already shown you that recognition doesn't take long to give. But another thought is to actually integrate recognition into your everyday work life. So for example, when you're responding to an email, make sure you include your appreciation and your gratefulness to what that individual is doing for you. How about in your staff meetings, making sure that at the beginning of the meeting, you acknowledge a particular staff member for something that they have done to benefit the department, to help you, or whatever it was. Make sure that when you're online and you're on your intranet site, that you do visit your recognition portal and be able to use your online programs to acknowledge someone. So use your regular workday to kind of fit these things in, even when you are busy. There's ways in which you can make recognition a part of your job and not something separate on top of everything else that you need to do. So I do have a final thought coming, but I want to stop and just ask Tommy Lee for any questions that we might have on the radar there and see what we can do to answer them.
Definitely. Just to read what you said, people first. That was a great last bullet. That's a great way before your final thought to end this. Because if you don't have time for your people are what give you results, get your work done.
That's right.
So it's just such a, I just don't understand why more managers don't get that. But yeah, we have a few questions. So Roy, Mickey says, after working on it for years, I still feel like I don't sound sincere. How can I be sure?
Well, let me tell you something we've learned. Most people, I say a majority of people, tend to use this good job, well done phrase, and they don't extend beyond that. They almost expect the individual receiving the recognition from that good job, well done, to just know that I guess it was just what I was doing just a second ago, but right. I'm not sure.
Right.
I think the key here is a great job is expected. So it doesn't become very sincere. Well done. Again, we should be doing good work, well done every day, right? So,
right.
All right. So now remember my 2-part specificity rule, and you've heard me talk about this, Tommy Lee, before. Here's what we found. When you use the first part where you say specifically what the person did. So Tommy Lee, I really appreciate the way you host our webinars. I'm giving specific feedback now as to what I'm acknowledging. Then the second part of being specific is telling the individual how they made a difference, how that impacted you, a customer, or the company as a whole. So I could say for my second part in the statement, Tommy Lee, this just makes my doing these webinars so much more enjoyable, and I feel more relaxed with your being a part of this process.
Aww.
So there you go. So now here's the key. that second part, when we've done workshops where we've taught people this rule and they've had real work-life scenarios from their own, company,
Mm-hmm.
people have said that the second part of the specificity, it sounded more sincere. The first part, at least, well, okay, so they saw what I did.
Right.
Are they trying to butter me up?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to give me another project to do? I'm not sure yet. But when you add that second part, the impact, the difference that was made, oh, I didn't realize that my doing that job was going to make that kind of a difference to people. Now they're a little stunned a little bit,
Yep.
but you know what? It's real. And so that adds the sincerity to the recognition. So I think the two-part specificity rule is a great way to get at it. Just don't forget the second part, because that's the sincerity clincher.
I think, and that's the part I think most of us forget. And it's
Yeah.
probably the part that really drives home or touches the heart the most,
Yes.
if I had
Yes.
to guess.
Well, thank you for that question, Mickey.
Mickey, yes. John says, I'm new to my recognition role. Thanks for the Gallup info. How can I get a deeper dive into recognition research? Are there any websites or organizations I should check out?
Well, certainly if you go to recognition.org, which is Recognition Professionals International, you can reach out to us directly. We'll give our contact information at the end. And of course, organizations like Deloitte, Gallup, and others have lots of wonderful statistics and research out there. But don't hesitate to reach out to us if you're looking for any specific information that can assist you.
Great. And he means that, ladies and gentlemen, seriously. Reach out to Roy. He'll help you out. Katie says, employees model our management behavior, do it right, and they'll be touched and do it right themselves. I guess that's more of a comment.
Yes, it is. And I think, sometimes we get this, we're uncomfortable with giving recognition. As you get better at it, and what I often say is recognition gets better as you give better recognition.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to just work on it, just like any other interpersonal skill that you have to do.
Yep. Stephen says, wish they taught these recognition skills during marriage counseling. I would have had one wife instead of three.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
No, but it's right. I mean, if you substitute marriage counseling for like management training, I wish they had these recognition skills during management training. I would have had one employee instead of three.
Yeah.
It really works for both.
Yes. And I think I think recognition and appreciation is something that should be a part of your life, not a specific setting. So this is not just about workplace, although that's where I focus my energy and time. But you're right. Once you get better at it, it transfers to your home, your family, and your community. And you'll be sought out by other people saying, how did you do that? How did you learn that? You seem to do this so well. And it's just because you're making it a part of your life. So it's not just integrating recognition into your work, it's integrating recognition into your life.
And if you have little ones at home, it's a great place to practice. Practice makes perfect. Practice with your kids.
Absolutely. Love it.
And like you said, it transfers it can, if you let it, be a part of every aspect of your life, because these are just core human interpersonal skills.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So whether you're dealing with, your team, your PTA, or your kids, your wife, your job, it's all pretty much the same skill.
It sure is.
And one last one just popped up here. Gene says, which of your solutions should we tackle first or do them all at the same time? It seems a lot to do when you're a novice.
Oh, bless their hearts. And you know what? If you're a novice at this, don't get overwhelmed. I would say that the time one is the biggest barrier that people create for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I would work on that. Kind of prove to yourself that recognition doesn't take a long time to give.
Mm-hmm.
And also then use that two-part specificity rule as a backup plan for being more confident on how to give recognition. I think that probably would cover a lot of ground, and then just systematically work on the rest. But don't get overwhelmed. Use the principle of simplicity, and time is not a barrier after all. And learning how to give recognition the right way by using the two-part specificity rule will be a great confidence booster for you in getting recognition right.
And I think you're absolutely right. And when you say, if you say, okay, I want by the end of the, it's January 1, and by the end of the year, I want to really improve the skill. And I don't know, whatever plan you have, but maybe add one a month or whatever it is. It's nothing that has to be solved overnight. You just want to be better than you were the day before.
I agree with you. And I just recently heard about that whole concept, like Benjamin Franklin did, where you just take on one attribute for a month.
Right.
And work away at it. And it is working away at it. And don't worry about that. Proud of you for saying you're a novice, which means you want to learn. Unfortunately, too many managers are seasoned, I suppose, by length of time, but are not good at giving recognition.
Yeah.
So a novice means you want to learn, and that's more power to you. That's wonderful.
Are you going to share with us, your final thoughts coming up, and then you'll share with them how to contact you, Roy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is the final thought that I found on Goalcast site, and that is, you must do the thing you think you can't. So whatever it is that you are struggling with that's making you uncomfortable, just learn to do it. Just learn to do it, just like the last question came in, what do I work on first? Just take one thing, work on it. Even if you think you can't, just start plugging away. Yes, your first attempts aren't going to be great. That's human behavior. That's just life. But the more you do it, the better you'll get, and you'll see that you can master recognition giving and be really regarded respectfully because of the fact that you are recognizing people. Remember those numbers of people who are not getting recognized. So just learn to start doing this, even if you think you can't or it's uncomfortable, and you'll get more comfortable at it. And that's a wonderful process to this whole project of getting recognition right. So as Tommy Lee mentioned, if you want to reach out to us on how to give real recognition the right way wherever you work, don't hesitate to give us a call. You can email me at roysaunderson@redo.com. Follow me on Twitter at Roy Saunderson. And of course, you can visit our Redo website to learn more about our programs as well. And you can follow me on my blog at authenticrecognition.com and sign up there. We hope that you will. So a huge thank you, not only to you for joining us, but to Tommy Lee, Ria, Stefan, and others who make this webinar service possible.
Well, thank you, Roy, for always delivering and giving us some really good food for thought that goes beyond the norm we would find out there. This was really a great topic. I appreciate it.
Well, we hope you'll continue to join us for our webinars. Hope you enjoyed today's webinar on why we are so uncomfortable giving recognition to people. And we'll certainly look forward to giving you more webinars. Don't hesitate to send in your suggestions or topic ideas, and we'll certainly put them into the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.